So my guest is Zainab Khan. She is the co-founder and board chair of MALA, the Muslim American Leadership Alliance. Zainab is born in Chicago into immigrants from Pakistan and Afghanistan. She is a clinician who started to get involved after eye-opening experiences counseling survivors of domestic violence and organizing exhibitions for international female artists who are facing repression. She has served as the United Nations delegate on the Commission on the Status of Women since 2013. She's a member of the Picture Motion's Impact Advisory Board and the executive director of the American Pakistan Foundation. She is an acclaimed visual artist and was honored with the inaugural UNICEF Next Generation Chicago Humanitarian Award, as well as the 2020 Silver Stevie Award for Female Executive of the Year in the nonprofit sector. She's published an oral history review about Mala's Muslim American journeys, recording Muslim American oral histories. Let me redo this phrase. She has published an oral history review about Mala's Muslim American journeys, and that involves recording Muslim Americans' oral histories. So Zainab, you are passionate about telling the success stories of Muslim Americans. Why is this so important to you, and what drives your passion?
Sylvie, thank you so much for the gracious introduction. And once again, thank you for including me in this conversation. In answer to your question, the stories of Muslim Americans has been the heart and soul of starting MALA. When I started the organization back in 2015, it was because I saw that there wasn't a representation of people such as myself who are American, who are Muslim, who have dual identities. And during that time, and still, I saw that Muslim Americans were always boxed into some category, either theological or political, or used for some sort of a social trend. And what we really wanted to do, myself and our original group of co-founders, was to spotlight the stories of Muslim Americans that are of different generations, that are of different ethnicities, that are of different, practices, whether you're Orthodox, whether you're secular. We wanted to be able to pull in together the human experience of being Muslim and being American and being proud, and also the individual journeys and stories and, walks of life that we've been through. So when we started the organization, and even now, we are the first and only organization to archive these oral histories into the National Library of Congress. So years down the line, for generations to come, if somebody is wondering what was it like for Syrian Americans during this time? Well, we have an entire archive of stories from the different diaspora groups that we represent. And the stories, to come back to your question, are really important because they bring to light a different perspective for a community that is probably one of the most broadest demographics in the US. And now with, a rise of immigrants, a rise of refugees, asylum seekers, their stories also need to be heard. And for us to be able to look at what it is like for them to become American, to be Muslim, and reconcile these different identities, it's really important. So feeling that, representation was lacking in the sense, even within our own community, that's really what the stories signify for us.
And it's interesting also how stories really help people get a sense of belonging and be really passionate and loving their community, and even envision a future for the community that they're a part of and building. So it's really important. I love that it's really interesting, that focus that you have on telling those great stories of success of Muslim Americans. So you thrive also on bringing the international stage to local communities, whether it's through the arts, through movies. That is really something that you are so engaged in. And I'd love for you to share how your Muslim faith drives your engagement, whether it's locally, nationally, globally. Tell us about that.
That's a great question. I always say, global change and global impact, starts at home. And even, for me, film and art and storytelling has always been such a powerful way to connect the dots for so many social issues, international issues that overlap and connect us. And, when we're looking at an international stage, when we look at an issue such as women's rights and what's happening right now in Iran, and how that affects the United States and how that affects the diaspora communities, and what we can do to change the plight of so many of these women that are living in these countries where, their only fault is being born a woman. Bringing these stories to a table, a dinner table, to a school, to a classroom, to community centers, through different ways of conveying the message, such as film or art or visual art or music, it really, really does show how these issues impact, issues that we may think that are going out there. How do they really impact us here at home? So that's really the power of these stories. And, just even the other day, I remember somebody had reached out and was like, I'm an Iranian American woman, but this person is of very high, almost a celebrity status. And she's like, well, I don't even know how to begin sharing the fact that I was forced to wear a hijab up to the age of 12 until we escaped Iran. And I'm like, say it, share it, because so many other women and so many other people will understand. And that story coming from you has a really, really large influence. So, this is how we're able to kind of connect the dots, connect something that may seem very abstract or out there, and where it comes and hits us home.
Yeah, thank you. My other question, if we shift a little bit, is how do you see the role of faith and places of worship in building a thriving community? How does it bring people together? How do you see it pan out and help communities?
Oh, that's a great question. Places of worship are really, they're central to communities. They're central to engagement. They're central to our social well-being, our sense of belonging, and even how we give back to other communities. I've seen, for myself, I'm involved with a lot of interfaith groups, so Jewish, Muslim, Christian, and Hindu. And one of the things that I think is one of probably what is so successful in so many of these places of worship and community gatherings is that we're able to reach out beyond our own community. Inclusion is something that I think is so beautiful here in the United States, that we're able to freely reach out, really do interfaith work, really connect with other communities and help each other, because that's really the purpose of what these areas of worship are. We're convening and we're gathering and we're helping one another, but even beyond ourselves, we reach out to others, and that really is, faith.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I love the perspective that you bring, that a place of worship is actually also a bridge to do some interfaith work, to reach out to more, to connect with other faith-based communities. It's not just a place of gathering. I'd love to shift to kind of maybe a really harder issue about how do you, there's in each communities, there's difficult issues that people have to face, especially women, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's female genital mutilation, whether it's being forced to do certain things, wear their hijab or do different things. How would you recommend? Like, how do you deal with issues like this, and how do you recommend people navigate these issues in that may be happening in the community or nearby communities?
Well, that's the question that really hits home, because there's so many issues within our own community, within the Muslim American community, that we have to address honestly, and that can come to hatred, prejudice, misogyny, supporting patriarchy, supporting domestic violence through forced marriages or arranged marriages, female genital mutilation that's done in the United States, and then nobody talks about it. We have to take ownership of our own community, so that, because really at the end of the day, we're the ones that are able to make the change, not somebody else. So if the change doesn't come, if if that need to change, if that outspokenness, if that willingness to address the issues within our own community doesn't exist, then there really is going to be a stagnancy in change. And that's the hard part, is, you know, really introspecting and being, look, this is not an issue that we really want to carry anymore. This is not something that we want to be labeled or addressed in. This is something that is happening in our community, and we have to put a stop to it. This comes from people that are going through it all the way to the top, where there's community leaders or clergy or wherever it may be, where people have some semblance of social authority. We really have to start speaking out about issues that are detrimentally affecting us, because if we don't do it, the change isn't going to happen.
So you, in conclusion, you are a bridge builder, and I'd love for you to recommend how people can follow your example and seek to tell the good stories that inspire, and also just reach out to people who are not like them.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I mean, everybody that's listening and watching can go on malanational.org, where we have the entire library of stories and different topics that people discuss and talk about what they went through. And that's just a wonderful way for you to be able to share your story. And so much of our work is having somebody read or listen to somebody's story and then be like, you know what, this resonates with me, and this is something that I can empathize, or I've been through as well. This is my story. And that really creates this beautiful ripple effect of, you know, positive change. Not saying that everything is going to be easy, but it does lead to a semblance of some awareness and positive social change. So that's really a great way for people to connect. We're active on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and YouTube. You can see a lot of our incredible videos of people's stories on YouTube, and it's just a really, really great way to engage and connect.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Zainab. It's great to speak with you.
Thank you.